The PM and the scientists. A little Chinese virus board decided to break free and went about the marketplace to see what he could see. A flu bug, much put out, remarked, "That pitch belongs to me. I may transmute from time to time, but basically remain true to my old ancestral roots, although a different strain. This parvenu is out of line and likely to cause pain." The COVID virus only laughed and went his merry way, then hopped aboard a passing gene without undue delay. That gene knew many other genes. Together they made hay. And soon, by land and sea and air, these bugs proliferated until they reached these blessed isles and rampaged unabated, at which point our wise government became exasperated, as more great British citizens were very soon infected, and flu vaccines that used to work when annually injected were found to be quite useless where COVID was detected. A doctor and Prime Minister were walking side by side. They wept like anything to see how many people died. The PM said, "Things have to change, but how I can't decide." "Oh, scientists, come and talk to us," the PM did beseech. "I've got a lot of cash to spend. Here's millions for you each. Just tell me what I ought to do. And Trump has suggested bleach." The politicians now took charge to distribute this wealth. Committees sat and talked for days. The Minister of Health was on TV for hours and hours and didn't spare himself. "If hospitals and old folks' homes all closed for half a year, do you suppose," the PM said, "that COVID could be cleared?" "We doubt it," said the scientists, and shed a bitter tear. The population panicked then and stockpiled what they needed. Tesco ran out of toilet rolls, and warnings were not heeded that the demand for Heinz baked beans had never been exceeded. The scientists all scratched their heads, retreating to their labs, attempting to find ways and means to manufacture jabs that would defeat the COVID bug. The prize was up for grabs. Then all at once we had to learn to sanitize our hands, to wear a mask and to obey the government's commands, or else become a criminal if failing these demands. "The time has come," the PM said, "to talk of isolation, of closing pubs and restaurants and all shops in the nation. Theatres, too, and cinemas must face evacuation. The trains and buses, always full, still ran, but travellers few. They didn't stop when asked to, if the driver thought that you might have increased his passengers by more than one or two." As the pandemic rumbled on and folks became much slimmer, cafes could open once again with £10 off your dinner, costing the taxpayer quite a lot, with caterers the winner. But with this dinner money gone, folks could no longer dine, and if they met as wont to do, would risk a hefty fine. They had to shop and socialise exclusively online. Theatricals and concerts too, by law had been proscribed. Dramatic entertainment to the public was denied. Actors, directors, and their crews all sat at home and cried. And all this while, white-coated folks were working days and nights to find an antidote that worked, or anything that might put paid to this appalling scourge and put things back to rights. Now 7 docs in 7 labs researched for half a year and told the worried Premier, "This plague will disappear." The PM said, "I'm so relieved," and gave 3 hearty cheers. "Oh, people," said the government, "we've had to curb your fun, but now we have a new vaccine to give to everyone. We'll be back to normal then when this pandemic's done." But still we wait for several weeks, as things are getting better. and hope remains eternal, though the weather may get wetter. Yet hopefully by summertime we'll get back our theatre.
You suit a red with either a bluish undertone, like our sexy sienna, or one with a warmer orangey tone. And your lipstick type is most definitely on the bluer side. I can see she's a real professional, standing there at the Charlotte's Tilbury counter. Very chic, all dressed in black, wearing one of those belts with lots of makeup brushes stuffed in it. She's called Stephanie. I tell her I'm on my way to a very special appointment. Even though I'll have to keep a distance, I need my makeup to look really something. Fresh and dynamic, she says, with an easy laugh. And I catch a glimpse of her tongue stud. 'Cause of all the COVID rules, I can't let you try anything on. But this is the one for you, Red Hot Susan. She's right, of course. It's lovely and bright. I put it on in the shop's toilet. It comes in a fancy gift set with eye pencil and blusher stick. So I put these on too. And return to show Stephanie. You look fabulous. She asks what foundation I use. I lie about this and my cleansing routine, but she seems suitably impressed. TJ doesn't like me in makeup. Says it makes me look tarty, a slapper, and what he calls asking for it. When we first met, I was trying to get my life back together and was into a good deal of eyeliner and lip gloss. But after that time at Pizza Express, well, you know, I thought my order had been perfectly clear. No onion in my salad, please. TJ says my breath's rank after. I'm sure the waiter hears me say it, but the onions come anyway. I try and ask him nicely to take it away and bam, that's enough. TJ's all smiles. Thanks, mate. But snipes at me that he knows I'm gagging for him. Then a whole lot about me sending out signals with all the filthy slap I'm wearing. So, until today, I've been 3 years makeup free. Except for the ones with the concealer on that bruise. We meet online. TJ's photo is amazing. He's so chiseled. I click on him sort of for a joke, never dreamt he'd respond. He likes that I've put something about wanting to meet an assertive type and that I look in shape in my photo. He lifts weights and competes all over the place. Says it gives him a buzz, helps him make bigger sales at work. So we hook up and he gets me into shape too. It feels great, all the sex and attention, and we look fantastic going out on the town. Dad says he thinks at last I've found real husband material, and Mum chips in, you're 35 and short on options. My best friend Monica finds him charming, even if a bit clingy, and she's not sure how well he'll adapt to my baby plans. But I don't want to hang around and once his divorce comes through, we're straight up the aisle. He's incredibly attentive, wants to know everything about me in my life, where I go, what I do, who I see. He tells me all about his childhood. It sounds hard moving from one army base to another, following his dad's job about. And then there's his parents' messy divorce. We're very close, share all our secrets. So I think. I tell him about my failed engagement and Mum's constant criticism. I even tell him about the abortion, and he's very understanding. It seems quite natural that he calls me twice a day to see what you're up to, or just turns up somewhere to say hello. I think he doesn't like to feel left out, I get it. But after we're married, his calls increase and are more intense. It's now where I'm allowed to go and who I can see. He's suspicious I'm interested in someone at work, even though it's ridiculous, and somehow I end up feeling guilty. Anyway, I have my eye on the prize of a family life. We have our first really bad argument when I catch him checking my texts. Work has been particularly mad, and he says he's noticed me spending more and more time looking at my phone, which is true because he gets angry if I call my friends, so I'm texting them instead. After this, I only text when he's not around and delete them afterwards. Well, it helps to keep the peace, sort of. As does accommodating his more and more rigid dietary routine, although I sneak the odd thing at work. Monica sees things aren't good, but I tell her, it'll settle down. I'm 36. It's after his hernia trouble that he starts bulking out and gets into all kinds of what the guys at the gym call special supplements. I can sense they're dodgy. They start messing with his metabolism, his weight fluctuates, and his mood swings are unpredictable. He's always worse when he gets back from the gym feeling pumped. Then he starts on at me with the comments about anything. My weight, my clothes, even the way I speak. All push. He accuses me of cheating on his diet. And work is tiring, so frankly, I don't want to go training. He marches me to a mirror and says, "You're a fat fucking bitch. You expect me to screw that? And you can forget babies." So I start spinning classes. He's keen at first, insists on meeting the tutor and turns up to see I'm attending the ladies-only sessions. I manage about 4 months of classes before he threatens me with giving up or I walk. So I stop, of course. I don't know exactly when it gets really bad. Maybe sometime after TJ's brother gets a big promotion. TJ's just failed to qualify for the Southeastern Championships. By then, I'm hardly going out at all, other than for work or to Sainsbury's. Although I'm not exercising, I've lost weight through lack of appetite and my skin's awful. When he gets angry, I try to calm things. Actually, it's best if I get upset and cry. Then he stops and gives me a cuddle, as though nothing's happened, and wants sex. I feel shit most of the time. Of course, I know there's a kind of line. Monica's at me, says I should get out. But he's not violent. Okay, that one slap, but really, that was my fault. And, you know, I keep hoping. The day we plan to visit my parents for Mum's birthday, he throws a complete paddy. Says I don't care as much for him as them, and that he'll do something I regret if I keep seeing them. We go anyway, have to. TJ's on razor form and relentlessly teases me about what I'm wearing. I try not to react, which makes him even worse. Then Dad says something about it being 3 years and me wanting a baby, to which TJ responds, "Well, she shouldn't have had that abortion then." Mum looks shocked and Dad won't look at me. I go and walk around the park for hours. My mobile rings constantly and I ignore it. I'm 38. Then, lockdown. We both have work we can do from home. In some ways it's easier, as TJ can have me in his sights all of the time, although now I have absolutely no excuse to leave the house, so prowl around the garden to try and keep out of his way. He simply refuses to accept that the virus poses any kind of serious risk, and when he gets wind of a gym hosting secret sessions, he's there all the time. The coughing starts after about 3 days. Then he takes to bed soon after. I keep him supplied with tea and toast, but after a week he's clearly lost weight and can barely drag himself to the toilet. So I give him a bucket. Monica's dropping off supplies, as there's no way you can book a delivery slot, and I have to quarantine despite being free from symptoms. TJ's breathing's laboured, but he still wants to know what I'm up to. I'm vague. Oh, you know, the usual. I can see that isn't enough to satisfy him, but he's too weak to argue. He starts to smell, but I just shut the door. Days pass. I continue to regularly wake him on the pretext of tea and provide hazy reports on my activities. His eyes rage. I'm all smiles of concern. I start to take myself to the park really early to avoid the crowds, and I enjoy eating cheese and onion sandwiches, which stink the place out and make my breath rancid. I watch the TV I want to watch. Looking through his things, I find an old court order restricting access to his previous wife. I had no idea. Poor woman. The GP keeps in touch, says TJ's history of steroid abuse may have affected his heart and puts him at a higher risk from the virus. I don't share this insight with TJ. He's just so grateful I continue to give him his supplements. When the ambulance arrives, I'm watching Countryfile and tucking into a large portion of fish and chips. I call the hospital every couple of days. There's no visiting, of course, unless it's to say goodbye. TJ picks up once he's on oxygen therapy. He has his mobile and he calls me from 7 a.m. in the morning. He sounds tired and anxious, says his ECG's found an erratic heart rate, and is on medication to help his breathing. Hates all the PPE, says it's like being in an alien film. I just let him talk on until the exertion cuts him off. Through the following days, I see his name flash intermittently on my phone and mostly ignore it. The calls come less and less, then stop. The doctor's non-committal in his prognosis, but suggests I be prepared. He says ventilation is a last resort, and although TJ's young, the heart damage and the effects of the steroids are not helping. I'm out of quarantine and work's furloughed me. Things haven't quite reopened yet and the roads are so quiet. It's been 3 years since I last strolled around without feeling guilty or anxious. Monica's furloughed too, so we meet in the park for morning walks. My skin's improved and I've put on a few pounds but seem surprisingly unconcerned. The call comes early, and I sense the nurse's anxiety. She warns me he won't really hear me in his induced coma. I'll give you a clear visor so it's easier to talk. I'm wearing the Charlotte Tilbury makeup. Stephanie is absolutely right. Even under the hospital lights, it does make me look fresh and dynamic. It's a very protracted process getting into hospital scrubs and all the PPE. The nurses look at me from behind their masks with sad eyes as they bustle around TJ. He's lying there all hooked up to monitors, looking very small and helpless. I lean in and with my gloved hand take his. Hello, TJ. It's me, Bethany. The nurses allow me 15 minutes of privacy to say my goodbye. I take my time, telling him all about my trip to the Charlotte Tilbury counter. See, I just bought this lipstick specially. It's called Red Hot Susan. There's no reaction. The machine wheezes on, but I've said what I came to say. The nurses respectfully help me disrobe. Outside the hospital, it's still early. In the car, I catch a glimpse of myself in the dashboard mirror, and I like what I see. I've 2 weeks of quarantine now, but what the hell? Then, I think I'll take Stephanie's advice and pop back to buy myself the sexy Sienna.
The view from this front upstairs window is always interesting, like looking into a fishbowl. Lots happening. There's a roadway and a small bit of parkland beyond, which looks its best in winter when covered in snow and populated with Lowry-like figures playing or trudging along, leaving footprints on the virgin whiteness. But now it's October, with the horse chestnut trees beginning to brown leaf, having shed their tons of conkers to be garnered by children, or crushed into pulp by the odd bus carrying a few masked passengers, all socially distanced. On the pavement, 2 couples are approaching. As they near each other, they go into single file and smile as they pass 1 meter apart, then continue side by side. Life is bizarre. The weather is fine at the moment. Being a weekend, groups of families are sitting on the grass or camp chairs enjoying glasses of wine or playing with the children, all strictly separate, each group having no contact with any other. I sit watching them. As I said, life is bizarre. Bizarre and lonely. Being of a certain age, one is considered by society to be vulnerable with a capital V. Don't leave your home unless absolutely necessary. Don't have anyone visit you or visit anyone else. If talking to neighbours over the garden wall, keep your distance. Be extra vigilant. Take care. Don't be a burden on the NHS. Wear a mask. Keep safe. All very correct, all very sensible, all very necessary, but all very depressing when alone, creating a moaning Minnie out of a happy-go-lucky. Some of the time, anyway. At least I do have a garden, not stuck in a high-rise block seeing future madness in the clouds. The garden is fun. Strawberries and tomatoes, a fig tree, walnut and cobnut trees, but no walnuts, figs or cobnuts since the advent of parakeets. Very pretty looking, but a bit of a pest, like the foxes. Looking out of an upstairs back window, I see a couple of parakeets clinging to the bird feeder, vainly trying to get at the seeds. There are 3 pigeons walking about underneath, hoping to get some of the bits that may fall from the parakeet's attack. All frustrated, fortunately. Little birds are sitting in surrounding bushes, waiting for the big bullies to leave so they can have lunch. I must remember to top up the feeder before going. I had a Zoom chat with my son yesterday. My daughter-in-law has the virus. She's not feeling too chipper at the moment. Completely exhausted and feels like a bad dose of flu or so, she says. She's flat out in bed. Doesn't eat. They live in London, near the Thames. Lovely. It's an easy journey there by public transport. I went by river bus once. Quite exciting, sailing through London's history. This house has quite a history too. Built in 1844 by an old-fashioned builder, so in Regency style and proportion. The garage was originally where the owner kept his horse. No running water then, but with a well in the back garden and a cesspit somewhere too. There was a water pump nearby for those without a well. And from the back of the house, 2 beautifully constructed brick tunnels continue for about 10 meters and act as soakaways. The extensive back garden was used to help feed the family. A different time. A different world. COVID then would be classified as a plague. Last winter, I went to a local travel agent saying I needed a holiday. Nothing cultural, just sun, sea and sand for the coming cold months. So February found me in Egypt at a seaside resort. It looked pretty horrendous in the brochure, but it was highly recommended, with guaranteed temperatures around 25 degrees and sun, sun, sun. In fact, it was excellent. Even with 900 rooms, 4 swimming pools, 6 dining rooms and a large beach, I had a quiet ground floor apartment with a small patio and all food and drink included. It was early in their season and only about a quarter full. I was near one of the unheated pools. The heated one was packed, so I was able to loll about on a sunbed with perhaps 2 or 3 other people in view and swim in the pool or from an almost empty beach. You could freely eat and drink for 24 hours a day if you wanted. Bliss. I arrived home just before COVID struck. Lucky me. Looking out at the world through double-glazed windows, I see all and hear nothing. Just silence. Like watching ancient films, but not as jerky. I wonder what Charlie Chaplin would make of it all. Probably put a mask on his walking stick. COVID. COVID. Carry on voluntary isolation depressed. Not all the time, but a little more each week. The idea of months more of it is a bit daunting. I've not been sleeping too well lately. Having the World Service on the radio helps. The news is more informative. It deals with worldwide interests and not just home matters. They sometimes have plays too in the early hours of the morning, but they aren't as good as when the BBC had its own repertory company, the afternoon play from 2:30 to 4. I used to record them on tape in my workshop. They're still around somewhere. Probably in one of the overfull cupboards that I daren't open in case everything spills out. I seem to be surrounded by clutter from the past. The idea of sleeping pills worries me. Don't know why. So I'm trying painkillers. They seem to work for a time, but then the system gets used to them and more are needed for the same effect. The Queen's birthday honours are announced, mostly for those doing voluntary work above and beyond what could be asked for in this time of epidemic. I offered in a small way locally at the beginning of the crisis, but was informed very gently, as if to a child, that I was too vulnerable, with a capital V. Hey-ho. Some time ago I was diagnosed with motor neurone disease, also known as amyotrophic lateral sclerosis or Lou Gehrig's disease. Take your pick. The problem is the same, whatever you call it, and the end result is identical. No way out except to personally choose the way. Take command while you still can. The idea of being a burden on my family for possibly years and years appalls me. So far, no one knows apart from my understanding medico. I'll tell them all about it in a letter. It's written. But for COVID, I might have hung on a bit longer. But now, I've worked out a way to go happily. Painkillers and cider. I was introduced to the delights of cider many years ago when I cycled down to a farm near Lyne Regis for a holiday. The farmer was great and introduced me to scrumpy and camembert cheese, so ripe it was dark brown and almost liquid. I have strong memories of holding a bright red tea cloth in front of me and playing toreadors with a couple of rams he kept in an orchard, spending more time safe up a tree than toreadoring. Good times. Happy days. I had very strong painkillers prescribed for arthritis before my knee joints were replaced by tin ones. I still have a half-full pack tucked away in a drawer. I'll fish out that letter.